disabled people who have HIV has vested in this. And where's the pressure coming from that GMHC is in favor of this bullshit? Where's the pressure coming from? Like, whose ass are they trying to kiss? Where does it come from that Ron Johnson and the mayor, when this, like, who could be against this? How could this hurt David Dinkins?
It's to get Ryan White funds, which are based on number of AIDS cases. That's what they're saying. They want the
So
funds.
it boils down to money.
Money,
So I'm wondering if there's a way to call, this is what I thought. I'm wondering if there's a way to call it.
But according to the information is that if you use a unique identifier system, you get the same number of people as if you have their name.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the important thing for people.
That's
how we do it.
Before we keep going on this, Tony has asked me, he works with DIVA TV and he wants to film some of the discussion just so that...
Because it's getting good.
So if you would just, if you would not film that section and if no one in that section would then speak for the remaining part of it. Would just make an effort not to film that side of the
How about just if people don't want me to
no,
tape
some
them?
people don't want to be like caught in the... Don't film that section. Larry, I had you hold on, right? Go ahead.
The best way to write a letter with all the things that upset us about what he's doing. I think if he's writing, as this
I'm sorry,
woman
that's terrible.
said, in support of that President Kennedy bill, I think we have to make it known that we don't support it. And on the night of their monthly board meeting, I think the board meeting, we'll find out when it is, I think it's usually about 6, but start going there about 4:30 and just hand out the flyers to all the clients and board members and staff members that go inside the building. And the board really hates all of that. And shame the board. How dare the board allow a staff, a mid-level policy person, not even a top-level policy to make a statement on behalf of the organization on their stationery and mail it, plus all these other things. And the same thing with Ron Johnson. I think we have a chance to be very strategically negotiating or whatever vis-a-vis the election. Dinkins hasn't been very good, but he needs us. And one is scared of Giuliani, but maybe Giuliani, we can let David think that we're leaning towards Giuliani because Giuliani is That's the way you do it. But in any event, I think if you did the same thing to Ron Johnson that you're doing to David Barr, which is to put a letter, with all the things that not only he's done that makes you unhappy, but that his boss has done that makes us unhappy. And we give it out publicly, either outside his office or at a city council meeting or whatever, and let David know it. At the same time, we should ask for a meeting with Giuliani. We should be doing that now anyway. We should be asking for a meeting with Giuliani, get a group of people together and say, okay, how do you feel about these issues? What can we educate you on? What do you need to know? And let David know you're doing all this. That's exactly what GMHC's already done that. All the AIDS organizations are already doing that. We should not be last in line for these things.
Isn't Dinkins more scared of Stein than
As somebody who worked on Campaign 92, you get everybody you can. I mean, we had Jerry Brown parroting our leaflets by the time he was done with it. And it pushed everyone else along.
Yeah, do the same thing with Sniper, or form a core committee of people who know these issues. And then invite the three of them here and grill them.
What I want to do at this point is see how many people still want to speak to this, because we had allotted 5 minutes for it and we've spent 20. And we could go on forever. So I see 4 hands, so let's just go for those 4 hands. 5 hands, Kate? 5 hands. and then we'll wrap it up. Emily, Gilbert, Kate, Mark, and Betty. Go ahead.
Overall importance to involve African American organizations in that. One, because they should know about it. You know, there's that. I'm talking about there's that. And two, because they're, as was mentioned before, they should be first concerned by this policy, and two, to avoid undue and useless attacks of racism against us. And I think I know we shouldn't be stopped by that, but it's going to happen, and we have to strategize around that. So I think we should call organizations such as BAM and tell them about that, and maybe they'll join us in the ZAP.
Kate?
All right, well, what I hear happening around this... Sorry.
People can't hear you otherwise.
All right, what I hear happening around this room, like just listening to it, is a committee forming. And I was thinking, what we need is something like Campaign 92, targeted toward the mayors, because what's happening here is everybody's, we're all from different committees with different specific issues we work on. But in fact, if you could have just one person from every committee that has an issue with the mayor together in a meeting, because I think a lot of people don't realize how almost all of the issues which affect us, there's some element where the mayor is somehow attached. Like I know for Yale, the Board of Ed. Well, we've got mayoral appointees on the Board of Ed. We're looking at, suggestions for Board of Ed restructuring, which would put the Board of Ed, which would give the mayor, a chance to appoint a majority on the Board of Ed. So you've got, we have a vested interest in the mayoral election. Those of us on Yale. Legal Exchange obviously has a vested interest. Testing and disclosure is a vested interest. I'm sure a lot of other groups have a lot of different issues with the mayor. So I'd say we need to call a meeting and call it as soon as possible and form a committee. And I think we need to zap all the candidates, because no matter who gets in, they're going to be a problem.
More problem.
Okay, Mark?
I got one thing about David Barr. At the UAA meeting here.
We were going back and forth between David Barr
The UAA was in New York was ready to endorse McClintock to bring it down to the national UAA meeting, and David Barr stopped it. And he used his lackeys as his staff there to change the discussion. And David Barr was the only person that actually sent a coupon in saying, "No, I will not endorse the McClintock Project at this time." So he's also fighting as hard to stop endorsement for the McClintock Project at GMHC and elsewhere.
Betty?
I attended some of the meetings with Mark and Steve and Mike Swirsky, Nick Rango, David Barr, etc. And I sort of want to address some of the issues that Clint raised of how this all works. First of all, people are scared about Guantanamo funds, and we cannot sacrifice them out of principle, because for many, many groups in the city, it's the only source of funding above the barest subsistence and managing to barely stay alive with HIV and AIDS. And we can do that if we have a proper, unique identifier system. The specific, I think what's going on a lot about why now, et cetera, partly it is that everyone's sick and tired of doing things the way that we've tried to do things since the beginning of the epidemic. Tuberculosis has given everyone a second wind to go back to the old public health, them from giving their disease to us kind of thinking. Things like confidentiality are considered to be strictly in the realm of elitist gay white men who want to protect their private insurance, their careers, and their la-da-da. And people are oblivious to the fact, and I think these are things that we all should understand as talking points, as ways to work with communities of color for whom right-white funding is crucially important, and with whom solidarity is crucially important for all of us in the years to come, is that all over the city there are families who fear that if their HIV status is revealed in their neighborhood, in their building, in their housing project, that they'll be torched, that their apartment will be burned. Their fear is that basic. This is not about Blue Cross and my career. This is about not burning down in the middle of the night. We did focus groups at Housing Works with many of our clients. It was around another issue, but it involved families discussing what kind of services they do and do not want in a theoretical apartment building that would house only families with AIDS. These families were willing to do without, give up services that they really desperately want, like transportation to medical appointments and things like that, in order to maintain their anonymity. They would do without almost everything else. These are crucial issues, and David Barr just, at that meeting, blew them off as utter piffle. He doesn't feel that way. How could anyone else? And we have to insist that these are not elitist issues. These are survival issues, critical to the standard of living, the privacy, and the human dignity of every person living with HIV and AIDS. The male condom is made of latex. This is polyurethane. It's strong. It's somewhat baggy-like, and it's used with a lubricant. And it's not approved yet by the FDA. It's gone before the FDA 2 times, the last time in December. And it got the approval of what they call the advisory committee against HIV and AIDS, STD prevention for women. This is a device that women can use themselves. So that's the good parts of it. It's being sold right now in Europe, in Austria, England, and Sweden. So now, what's happened is that it's been written about in this magazine, 6 pages discussing the advisory committee meeting of the FDA at the FDA. And essentially trashing it and saying that it's not, it's really a gizmo, a contraption, and why should women really have it? And, they only want it because there's a male condom and so forth. It also, in this article, Tom Curtis, doesn't say that it can be used for prevention of AIDS or prevention of STDs, and it's women control, and we need this type of device. He doesn't anything like that. When the magazine, we got the magazine, and we reviewed the magazine on what's in it. And essentially, there's a lot of pharmaceutical companies. There were about 8 pharmaceutical companies that advertise it here. There's an article on over-the-counter drugs, how good they are, and so forth. Pharmaceutical companies such as for contraceptives. It doesn't say that contraceptives can prevent HIV. Some people actually think they might if they use them. It prevents pregnancy, why not HIV? So there's no HIV information in this magazine. This is sold all over the country. It's a non-cast publications. And what was even more disturbing, I've written a letter and was approved by coordinating committee to go to the editor saying that they actually should have a new article, non-biased article, on the condom. This is supported by women's health advocates and AIDS organizations, including our own. And it's not the end all, and it may not be good for many women, but it should be available. People in Harlem have seen this at Columbia University, have been told about it, and they want a device. It will be somewhat expensive. It's going to be about $250, and it will come in a package of 3 with lubricant. This magazine, on here, it says here, New York, come to the women's workshop. It's free. Well, when I looked at what this women's workshop was,
the Women's Health Day, there are 10 universities, schools of nursing, that are having workshops. And they're having them on, most everyone seems to be breast cancer, not breast cancer, but breast health, as they put it. And nutrition, some of them have nutrition and exercise and so forth. Nothing to do with AIDS or STDs, nothing at all. And it's really somewhat shocking. I called the ones in the city, and in fact I faxed my report to NYU, something I handed out last week, and they sort of got all upset. What are we going to do? The May 8th is the date of the conference. Rochester called me back today, and I told her about what my concerns were, and she says, I says, have you seen this magazine? No. Nobody, you know, these schools have not seen this magazine at all. It's really, you know, they're putting their good name on this magazine. There's a picture of nurses, steps to saving lives. Pictures of nurses, pictures of Columbia assistant professors and so forth in this little insert here. And this is really shocking. The companies obviously pushing contraceptives on women, you know, women. They rather get a lot of money for those contraceptives than to tell them about barrier methods or chemical methods. They do have spermicides in here, but they're all against pregnancy. It doesn't say prevent AIDS or this or that. In New York State, there is a brochure for women only. And this does say what women's choices are, not to have sex, but then the first, if you don't want that, right? The first choice is a latex condom that's treated with spermicide. The second choice, if you can't use that, is the latex condom without spermicide. The third, it says the next best. And the third is risky but might help, is if he won't use a condom, use a diaphragm with cream. And the fourth, better than nothing, is vaginal spermicide alone. This is all that women can use to protect themselves. So, again, we're against, you know, this is a publication. It's also the pharmaceutical companies that have their own agenda on what they want to sell young women. They don't care about AIDS. Obviously, they don't. One of the biggest companies here is Plow, which is pushing the Lotrim, which is for yeast infection. And they, with regard to women and AIDS, alpha interferon is a drug that's hardly been tested in women at all. It's going into children now, but it hasn't been tested in women. So this company is really a nasty one. So the agenda, okay, the action with respect to what we're going to do is I need help in doing it. I'm going to go away next week sometime, in the middle of the week. There is this May 8th date, but I think that this is an ongoing thing. This is not a first time thing. The Lotrimin action of the Women's Committee, that's great. That has to continue. These companies have to be nailed. They're not, the young women, they're the fastest growing group. The young women, the teenagers, they're, you know, the death rate is up there. It's 19%. That's 19%. The teenagers are really getting clobbered with this stuff.
We're close to
So,
time, and I want to take questions. Are you proposing an action on
Well, the action, I'd like some more ideas on what an action could be and how the floor would like to act on this. there's 2 letters going out. One is to the editor, and one is going to go to the schools, telling them that they really should review these magazines before they put their good names in here. And
Iris, can you bring us the letter, let the floor vote to support the letter, then it can be an act out letter?
it is an act-out letter. The coordinating committee, I don't want to, because one of them is rather long. It's about 3 pages. The other is a 1-page letter to the schools. But how can we continue to work on this? There's a small group of healthcare workers and scientists that work on these barrier methods and chemical barriers for women. But, you know, if they're against the drug companies, they don't really have a chance. And so has to be a...
Okay, we need to take questions and discussion. Rich and then Kate.
I have a suggestion, actually. It sounds like what you've got so far in terms of an action for this is this letter that's going out to coordinating committee approved, which is already happening. That's fine. That's great.
Yeah.
What you need is a working group of people to work on this and plan a series of actions. So you should ask for some people to go off the floor and get a date and get together and get a meeting.
Okay.
All right, I've been sort of working on this issue, and Yale has been, if we had time here, I mean, we've been talking on and off about planning a teach-in, like a 2-day teach-in, around the idea of young women, female anatomy, with some focus on the female condom. See, our problem is that this is once again becoming a political issue rather than an education issue. The bottom line...
It's a megaphone from the march.
The bottom line here is that this female condom, while it's a very necessary option, is also quite difficult to use. I mean, I was puzzled by it, by the instructions. I mean, I couldn't figure out if I was holding them upside down. So, first of all, something needs to be done about these instructions. Just like the instructions that come with condoms, they need to be scaled down to make them appropriate for human use. Furthermore, instead of publishing political articles on the female condom, like the one in Self magazine, and like others that various reporters have been talking to me about from both these sort of young women's magazines, which Yale is working on targeting for a variety of reasons, but also the older women's magazines like Cosmopolitan and Mademoiselle, etc. They're all talking about the female condom. But what they're talking about is the politics of it. They're talking about it as a women's issue, which it is, but what we need is information on how to use the female condom. We need technical information on it. We don't need as much like political diatribes for and against without the facts. That's the problem. Facts are getting thrown aside in favor of editorial.
I'd like to make a proposition that all those who are interested in this issue meet at 7 o'clock next Monday here at the center before the 7:30 meeting. And we ask Dan to put it in the calendar so that everybody knows that the women's condom group...
And just to let you know what we did, what happened, and just so that you get a little bit of it. So, go ahead.
You asked how I got to make the speech in the first place. I didn't have to tell you all that. I wasn't allowed to speak at the official mall. And it wasn't so much I minded that I wasn't allowed to speak. There was not one AIDS activist that was allowed to speak. There were one, maybe 2 AIDS bureaucrats, but there was not one AIDS activist. AIDS was really demoted in this march to a rather lowly position, and I found I was getting very angry about it. And so I did a couple of things this weekend, which was there was a dinner for Donna Shalala on Thursday night at the Library of Congress, and I printed up a letter to her. Originally, I was supposed to have dinner with her that night and sit next to her at this table. And when she found out that I was going to be there, she canceled. And she only came for the speech. So I said, oh, well, I'll have to get my message to her another way. So I printed up this very strong letter where I called her Donna Do Nothing and Bill the Welcher and all the things that they had done. And some of the things that I have found out that I made the basis of the speech on Sunday. I mean, I think it is really gross that nobody has called Fauci for 6 months. You know, whether we like him or we don't like him, he's the man in charge. And that nobody of any authority in the White House or in HHS or anywhere, any of their lackeys has called the #1 person in this fucking plague just tells you what we're up against. So I said this all in a letter. And because it was a minority dinner, Minority AIDS organization, Paul Kawada's group, Michael Petrellis found me a lovely black woman from ACT UP DC who helped me give out the letters, Sabrina Green. And then while she spoke, we held up signs that Vincent Gagliostro made for us. It said Donna Do Nothing and Bill the Welcher and 100 Days of Nothing and Donna You're Killing Us. And Donna couldn't see us because of the columns. And she was at she was at a podium between 2 columns, and Sabrina was on the other side of this column holding up the signs, and I was on the other side of this column. So she couldn't see it, and every time we held up a new sign, we got applause. And she thought it was for her. And it wasn't until she got home that night and saw it all on C-SPAN that she and evidently she hit the fucking roof. And Paul Kawada was called in really late on the carpet the next day. Anyway, we made USA Today, we made the Washington Times, we made the AP Wire, and so that was really, for me, a very interesting experience because I've never done anything on my own like that before. And it made me realize how it only takes one person to do a demonstration, really. You know, we've all so much relied on each other. And I got a lot of empowerment from that I pass on to you. Or the telling of. On Friday, Michael had his hands around the Capitol thing, which was really a huge success. And some of you heard me, I made a speech there that was a version of the letter I gave out to Donna. And in the course of the speech, I said that I had not been allowed to speak on whatever it was, Sunday. And I had called the co-chairs, and Derek Livingston, who was one of the co-chairs I actually knew, who had directed a production of Normal Heart Up at Brown. And other people from around the country had called to support my speaking. And I was told point blank I was not allowed to speak. I was considered much too confrontational. They were afraid that I would either be critical of the gay community, or that I would be critical of the government, and it was all kissy Bill Clinton this week, and that's basically what it was. And when I finished the speech, 2 things happened. One was Action Tours came over to me and said, "You want to speak? We'll speak." And I said, "Great. And just don't tell me how you're going to do it, but I'll tell you where I'm going to be." But then that night, I happened to have dinner with Tori Osborne, the new head of GLTF, and Tori said, "It really is not right that you not speak all, and I'm going to be speaking, and I will see that you speak after me." And it was Dyke Power that got me up there. Tori spoke to Irving, and Kate Clinton and Robin Tyler were the 2 MCs, and they got me up on the stage, and they got me to the microphone, literally, through a lot of security. And I'm telling you, the place was a lot of security. And I didn't have time to really write a speech. I was schlepping around this one letter all weekend. All the speeches were version of the one letter. But and when I got up there to make the speech, they kept pulling me away and, you know, hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. So I didn't, in fact, give the whole speech. So Harry, who found criticism with the speech, those are my excuses. But we did make important media with the speech, and the most important thing was that the Washington Post printed my statement about Donna Shalala being a lesbian, and that is incredible for a major newspaper to do that. So I felt that I felt good this weekend, that I had really stirred it up. Now, I want to just ask all of you to put something in your mind, and that is Berlin is coming up, and I really want Berlin to be some kind of major statement. And I know Andy Velez and Eric Sawyer, that there's a committee, and all that are working real hard, and we have this benefit that's probably going to raise, I forgot how much, we will know by next week, $50,000 or $60,000, and someone has given us another $10,000. The Jonathan Shepard Foundation has given us a grant. So, you know, I want all of you to somehow think of coming there. I personally want to, I have to be careful with my words, but I really want to destroy the conference. I want to really interrupt it. I don't care about the science. I don't care about, I want us to confront these doctors and say, how you who know better than we do, better than anyone, how awful everything is. This is the 13th year. How can you have been? So why do you leave it all to us to make the noise, to do all of that? So I know this is not the time, and you're giving me your look.
Right. I've seen it many times by now.
And I
Recognize it.
I should be able not to be cowed by it.
And you're not.
So I encourage you all to go to the Berlin meeting on Thursday. I encourage anybody here who's in TAG to join with the Berlin. Peter Staley, in fact, has made an overture that we somehow get together on this. Peter is really good at stuff like this.
Let's raise as few controversial issues at this point as possible.
Why?
So that we can get on with the rest of the Washington report.
Okay, so think Berlin, all right?
Thank you. What I'd like to do at this point is that
Thursday night where?
7:30 at the workspace.
Okay.
Okay, a lot of people have questions and things they want to say, but what we're going to do now is just run through the actions that went on this weekend as quickly as possible, starting with a report on the
we're going
lesbian
to actually do,
action.
for the first time on the whole march in Washington, I think we're going to do this in chronological action order as an itinerary of the weekend, starting at 11 a.m. at Health and Human Services.
I just want to say that. Larry just spoke for longer than the Lesbian AIDS Action was ever allowed to speak in our 9 months of planning this, but that's all right. All right. But I just want to give a really quick report. You know that I didn't know about all the stuff with Larry and Donna Shalala because the very next morning we had our meeting with her. And the meeting was with 20 people. There were 19 people, 15 HIV-positive lesbians, mostly dykes with AIDS, and 4 advocates and 1 camera woman so that it's documented for everybody. It was a really intense, angry, fierce, wonderful, moving meeting. Everybody spoke, everybody gave her shit. Somebody said that she cried during it. I wasn't really watching her, I was trying to facilitate, but she did. She was at the end of the table and she moved around to the middle because she wanted to see. And it was really interesting when we're trying to get into the meeting as Derek Hodel was walking out looking very spiffy. They were saying to us, we need you to have IDs. All of you women get your IDs out. And these women are like carrying their methadone, you know, and saying, we don't have IDs. And I said, this is a really different meeting than you've ever been to. And it's there was a big security problem, but we eventually got in. And the meeting, she was only going to stay for 5 minutes, and she stayed for 35 minutes. Gary Noble of CDC was there,
Peggy Johnson of NIAD was there with her little black triangle on. I don't know that she'd ever been out before, but she had her little lesbian pin on. Randy Wyckoff of FDA was there. All of her staff was there. Patsy Fleming, who's a special assistant who used to work for Ted Weiss, was there, and she was actually really great. We demanded an HIV-positive lesbian and women. I think we're really going to do a coalition since all the issues that we brought to the table and more were about women living with this disease. And we're going to keep the women together and form a speakers bureau. We asked for a meeting for them to report to us on June 4th. And it was a really intense, incredible organizing experience. And we're going to report on the whole day, including the action, next Monday. So please come. Okay? Thanks. Thanks for your
support. 2 o'clock at the pharmaceutical manufacturers.
I have even less to say than that. We met at 2 o'clock. Everything that could go wrong did. The visuals didn't show up. There weren't enough marshals. We went into the street too soon. The affinity group wasn't at the front, but somehow we got there. The affinity group did a great job. Barbara and Beth, with the help of Drew and Matthew, managed to force a ladder up this building, climbed up onto this 20-foot arch, scaled it, and then dropped a banner that said, AIDS, a crisis, not a profit opportunity. And then had large dummies handed up the ladder to them and then tied them by their little necks and draped them from the arch. Made quite a nice picture. Meanwhile, down below, ACT UP was brawling with the cops. Fortunately, there were
Not ACT UP New York.
Not ACT UP New York. Fortunately, there were not enough cops for them to really get involved in it, and they backed off. The crowd never got involved in the legal picket we had planned, but did listen to speeches by Alden, by HIV-positive lesbian from Tampa Bay, by Scott, talk about the effect of the pharmaceutical industry on the lives of people with AIDS, and then we turned around, marched back to the park, and with the exception of a brief die-in, dispersed from there.
Street. I want to thank everybody who was there early and on time because it really helped us seize control of the space and organize ourselves. I also want to thank everybody who marshaled because what happened was that we had said we were going to go in between contingent that didn't have any ACT UP signs or anything else, but we're doing the chants and everything else with us, and was actually very empowering to have that much support, although it made our contingent a little looser, right, than we would have liked. Kim?
And I'd like to tell you that what we did, we took the banner and we ran up, and we almost made it to the front. And it was good visuals because the people on the sideline, they saw the banner and us running, you know, holding the banner, and they said, ACT UP New York, and we said, like, you know, fight AIDS, fight back, fight AIDS, you know, how many must die before you join the fight. So a lot of people were talking about the fact, they thought that was an accident or something. Someone told us to go, and a lot of people in the street from, you know, the next day and that evening were talking about ACT UP. We almost got to the front of it, but it was a long.
It was long because I know halfway through when I ran back to talk to Shane and James and make sure that they and everyone else in the banner was all right. And it took, I mean, it took me a long, long time. And by that point, I think GMAC was just turning out of the block, and it was still, I nearly didn't make it back up front.
Right,
but
so
it was.
a lot of people were giving ACT UP credit for, you know, for getting the, all the AIDS activists groups together. And people knew about it, and were talking about it, but it was very.
And it was just great to have a whole AIDS contingent with all those people in it. Okay?
I'm proud of you too, but really proud of you too, but I like it for quite a while. You didn't get up much further to the front of the 17th edition.
I guess it was this afternoon. I've been up since 6. I don't remember when it was. It happened. It was a good, there was good energy there. It just basically moved across a park, across that Senate Park and into the street. There were lots of cops there, riot cops. They were being moderately aggressive, but we were fucking with them a lot. And there were about, I don't know, like 30 or 40 arrests. And the energy was really good. There was a high level of energy. And just as it finished, there came this total downpour, which was just like perfect. It made the cops go away. So people like Mark, who was there organizing, will give a more full report next Monday. Yeah, coffins and stuff.
Yeah, I just want to say that I went as a marshal for GMHC with my friend Pat, but at one point when they were talking on a big podium, we were getting very angry that nobody had mentioned yet the word AIDS, as Larry said earlier. And we formed a little ad hoc affinity group, and we went behind the podium and convinced a few of the security guards to reach whoever was speaking next, that they had to say something about that. And after that, as a result of that, the next three speakers mentioned AIDS, and we felt that we had accomplished something.
Okay, I guess we'll come back to this.
Human Rights Law Clinic at Yale have asked Broberg and me if we would go down to Guantanamo on Thursday to stay through next Tuesday. Our purpose in going down would be to work with the remaining 199 people. Probably about 100 of them will not have families already in this country, and therefore will mainly be coming to New York to be resettled by Bros and my out-of-the-backpack methods instead of by the Catholic Conference and Church World Service official government-funded methods. We want to sort people out. We're going down with the director of HIV clinic from Community Family Planning Council to see who's DAS eligible, who's boyfriend, who's girlfriend, who wants to live with who and where and whatever. And we'd be working with about 100 people. This will not be a junket. It's going to be scary. It's going to be flying around in a hideous olive green propeller cargo plane for which we have to pay and being surrounded by ghastly people named Bo and Bud who will be telling us what we can't do. But, you know, our guest from Denmark spoke a little bit about the beginnings of special houses and special areas for people with AIDS, and some people from ACT UP went to Cuba this fall and came back to say that the real AIDS concentration camp on the island of Cuba is an R, nasty little end of the island in Guantanamo. And I have seen with the group of 36 people that the judge released 2 weeks ago, everything that sort of spread out over the whole lives of a lot of the people that we work for every day here, who are homeless, who use drugs, who have problems with mental illness, and who have AIDS. It's sort of like a lot of real human rights abuse is spread out over their lives. And this group of people, all of this mess just swooped down on them when they were picked up by the Coast Guard and kept there instead of being allowed into the country with the other 10,000 people. They've been kept in a literal, physical limbo, this little treeless, shadeless end of this island, and told that they are bad. Gro and I will only, if we are lucky, be allowed into the camp once. We will mainly, and probably during that entire visit, we've been told people will yell and scream at us and throw chairs at us out of their rage at America when they see white Americans standing there. And then they will come out of the camp in groups of 10 to meet us on the military base. And the reason that we are not allowed to be with them in the camp anymore is because the military does not want us to get to know them or feel sympathetic towards them. The military wants to maintain the idea that they are bad, bad, bad on this island, bad behind razor wire, bad, we can't go in and be with them. And I have seen in the last few weeks, the impact of that compressed, hate-filled, really lethal stigma, medical practices that have shortened their lives, giving women with AIDS shots of Depo-Provera that causes them to bleed heavily when they are going to have all of the anemia problems associated with AIDS. People who have taken INH prophylaxis, not because they're PPE positive for TB, but because they're sleeping in filthy barracks with people with active disease and have put their livers through 6 months of that toxic drug for no reason. And now if they do get TB, they'll be resistant to the mainline drug. This kind of shit is going on down there. And they know it. They know the healthcare is terrible. And they know they're being lied to and condescended to. That women, when their infants are sick, are pressured to send their babies up here alone because they don't care about their children the way we do, is what the Army says. And I have seen the psychiatric damage that has been done to this group of people and how they take everything bad that's done to them, and the big fight is to keep them from just turning it around and dumping it on themselves. And we want to go because it'll help us simply do the job that we normally have to do out of payphones in the Miami airport a lot better if we can begin to do some of it down there, because it's hard for people to trust us, and we know that they will trust us more if they know that we've been down there, because we feel like we're part of their lives now, and we want to begin this part of their lives. What we need is $660 a piece. Gail is
I totally forgot about the money.
Gail is paying for half of it, and we have to pay for the other half. So that's what we're asking for.
So let's take
There's hardly any coordinating.
Let's take questions first regarding this. Well, yes, I think, no, I mean, I know I have questions, not that would make me vote differently on it, that I would want to have answered. I'm sure other people do as well, and I see a whole range of hands here, so going in this order. Emily?
The thing is about people are being kept in those camps. Do they get released?
We are hoping, the reason we are going down is we hope that the judge in the federal court will write an order to release them, and we are planning in advance, hoping this will happen.
Well, the reason why I question this is that in Sweden they have now detained 65 people, and they will not release you if you are the person who are detained until you understand you are in a danger for the society. Until you reach that point, they will keep you. I could go deeper into how they keep people, how they catch people in the streets. Especially the hookers, they catch them in the streets.
This is just different because these are immigrants who got political asylum in the United States and were then denied access to come in because of their HIV status.
Hard immigration law. That's what it is. But believe me, everyone's terrified. One woman called the radio and said, but they will have sex with thousands of people.
Ellen?
Just two brief questions. Since as I understand, the Yale lawyers are paying for half of it, why they can't pay the whole thing?
Well, because it's like, I mean,
as opposed to that, I'm sorry, just in my mind, and this is my prejudice, I admit, I find it easier to imagine Yale lawyers coming up with the money.
it's like any poverty law firm. It's not like, you know.
And the other question was, you mentioned that children have been sent up, separate from their mothers.
They have generally, they tried to, and the lawyers pressured and refused to allow that to happen.
Okay, so the kids have not been separated and sent out separately. Okay.
Barbara? Okay, there were some other hands. Can I just see? Okay.
My name is Emil. Really, you probably saw the Phil Donahue show this afternoon.
Of course.
The piece of news, a surprising piece of news, is the O'Connor saying that he would take anybody.
That's bullshit.
No, but I mean, we can hold him to that. I mean, it's commitment. What did he say? He said that he could
Would you want to put
house and take all the people.
You want them to do the HIV counseling for this gang? The Yale lawyers have chosen Bro and me because they don't want this to happen. But, and incidentally, the other people on that program, many of the people that you saw in that program are the people that we work with. Johnny McCallum, who was up on the stage, GP, his wife, who was in the audience, is traveling down with us. Anna Obor, the man that was in the audience, and you also saw many of his bands, who people we work with. Sabine Albert, all of the
Johan, then I'm going to call myself, and then let's move this to a vote.
I just wanted to ask, do we have any more information about when we expect a ruling, and is anything to be leaked about how he's going to rule? No.
No idea. None at all.
Okay, I'm going to say I support the proposal.
I'll ask my questions then. My question is, are you going down there as a representative of ACT UP and Broberg going down there as a representative of ACT UP?
We are going down as what is known as the Yale New York group. We would probably not be going if we went as ACT UP.
I guess my question is, you're asking ACT UP to send you, but to send you not as representing ACT UP New York. Why?
Because we deal with a completely paranoid Justice Department and an army, neither of whom would want us down there if we went.
Okay, and then can I ask one more question? Have you asked either Housing Works or Coalition for the Homeless, which are going to be doing some of the work of resettling people to put up the money?
Well, they're putting up a lot of money in resettling. We do not get federal funds for work, unlike Church World Service and Catholic Conference. In fact, we asked for it and we just got a letter denying it from the federal government. So basically, Bro and Eric Sawyer and I have raised, the extra money that it costs, for instance, Housing Works,
So this will
and us to do it.
being done without any of the
federal funds that the religious voluntaries get.
right, or without Housing Works or Coalition's financials. This particular trip.
The coalition will be contributing some, but Housing Works costs so much money to do this.
And here.
And they contribute all of Bro's work.
You have to stand up and speak. Bro isn't from ACT UP New York.
Yes, he is.
I mean, does he? Okay, because he hasn't been to meetings in.
I don't know
Any meeting.
I can't hear you at all.
Floor, could we have no crosstalk here? There's plenty of time for everyone who wants to speak on this issue to speak, and there are lots of hands up. So, Jane, Rich, and Barry.
The only problem that I have with this is sending somebody who's not really an ACT UP member, okay? I have a big problem with that. Somebody who doesn't support ACT UP, hasn't been to ACT UP in a really long time. I mean, I'm in the Berlin committee. We are struggling, really struggling, to send AIDS activists.
We have policies that we advocate and work for in doing this work.
I'm not against your policy, Betty. This is the last thing I'm going to say. Because I was, I took all of the actions I was able to go to about Guantanamo. I was at the trial, but, what I suggest to you, is to raise the money. Like what we, the Berlin Committee, is doing. We're out there the whole weekend selling those, those pendants to go. So I suggest you raise the money. And then you and Bro could go. Bro hasn't been here in months. He doesn't even participate in our actions. Why should we send him? I would send you.
Maybe, do you want to take it as an option to break it up into you and to Bro? It's just to think about. I have some more comments on the floor, but it's just something to think about. I'm going to take a couple more comments. Okay.
This is really, some of the stuff I'm hearing is just really upsetting me. It's really absurd. This is about saving the lives of people with HIV, okay? I know that this is like, oh, this person isn't an ACT UP. You know, who gives a flying fuck if they've been at this, if they're in this meeting tonight, or if they've never been in here in their lives, if they're saving people's lives, okay? What this is about is they've got to get, they're supposed to leave Wednesday. They need the money. Maybe they should have raised it some other way. Maybe this should be a loan and they should raise the money and pay us back. I would like that. But the point is they've got to do it. They've got to do it now. We're supposed to be activists and advocacy and not service providers, but we've done service provision before, especially when it has a political context, like the needle exchange. This really has a political context. This is about, I mean, if they don't do this, because, you know, the Catholic Church is just sucking up the money and they don't do any of the work. If they do it, we know what the Catholic Church should do. If they don't do it, and the judge releases everybody, there's going to be this insane flood of 200 people. They're not going to be able to house them. It's going to be chaos that's going to kill people, okay? This is about lives. That's what we're about. Let's do it.
Barry?
I want these people off Guantanamo Bay, out of that prison so much, and I really want them coming back into Betty's hands. I don't want them coming back in the Catholic Church. I do want them coming back in Betty's hands, and quite frankly, I don't care if what group that Betty has to say or she says no group. I really think that the bottom line is these people have to get out, period. And I would support, I think this is a really small amount of money. And, you know, if you could raise the money, fine, but I know that you've been working so hard on this that I think now is not the time for you to be worried about raising money about this. Perhaps when this whole thing is over, and maybe then, but right now, I would vote for any amount to help. We've been working on this for months. We've done so many actions, so many people have been arrested. I don't even think there should be discussion on this.
I just want to make a point. You know, when we go to do an action in a city group like Action Tours, no one walks up and says, "Hi, we're from Action. Can we go into your office and sit down?" Right. This is an ACT UP member up here who we are getting into that camp by any means necessary. She's going to be in there doing ACT UP's work. I don't care whether she says so up front or whether she goes in under another guise. She's still us, and we have to support that. That's it.
Okay, last call for speakers on this. Terry, now.
I just wanted to say that, you know, after this hopefully is all over, I think it would be a good thing to put out some kind of a press release or a statement that said people from ACT UP have been doing this work, and we couldn't do it under our own